Dim the lights. I wrote it on the board. I hadn't mentioned it yet. Now, we've been talking about the economy. We've been talking about the Federal Reserve. We just finished talking about inflation and why inflation is bad. Because you're putting money into circulation, you basically have no substance behind it. There's nothing to back up the money. Now, if you add money, and inflate the economy, the money that's in circulation becomes worth less. And if you add enough money, the money that's in circulation becomes worthless. So inflation is bad. Now, Alan Greenspan tells us that we need the economy to be inflated about 5%. Now, wait a minute. Why would that be true? If inflation is bad, why would 5% inflation be good? Well, if you woke up tomorrow morning and everything cost you twice as much, wouldn't you be a little bit concerned? I mean, wouldn't you, call your congressman and say, wait a minute, how did you guys do that to us? Well, if they inflate the economy 5 cents a year, and so bread starts out as $1 a loaf, and then in December now it's $1.05. Are you going to write your congressman and say, wait a minute, bread went up a nickel? No, probably not. It's not enough to worry about. Well, then the next year it's up to $1.10, and then $1.16, and so on. Inflation is bad. The reason that they inflated at 5% is because it's not so bad that we're going to notice or complain. How many people know the story about how to cook a frog? Yeah, right. All right? Well, basically that's what they're doing. They're doing it in little increments so that we don't get irritated. Well, let's get irritated anyway. Now, inflation is bad. Let's talk about deflation. October 1929, stock market crash. Oh, terrible, terrible stuff. Accident, right? No. The stock market crash was deliberately caused. You can read books on that. They deliberately caused the crash of the stock market. Now, if that was the only thing that happened, the stock market would have, been recovered in about, 3 months. Okay? No problem. Is the stock market crash caused the Great Depression? No. What caused the Great Depression? Anybody have any idea?
Took the money out of circulation.
They took the money out of circulation. They contracted the money supply. In October, the day that the stock market crashed, the amount of money in circulation was enough so that each man, woman, and child could have $2,400. So if you spread it all out, everybody had $2,400. A year later, guess how much money was in circulation? $14.50 per person. From 2,400 to 14? If you're paddling down the river in a canoe and somebody sucks all the water out of the river, where are you going to go? You're going to be sitting there going, what happened? Now, the Great Depression, was that because you didn't have enough people to work? Were people sitting around going, I'm just not going to work today? No, you had people begging for jobs. Please hire me. Why can't they hire you? Because we got nothing to pay you with. I want to buy that apple. Okay, give me $1. I don't have $1 to give you. Money is just supposed to change hands. There wasn't enough money so we could do our business. And the economy came to a grinding halt. On purpose. So now we say, oh my gosh, a terrible, terrible trouble. We've got this national emergency. Whatever will we do? Oh gosh, I know. Let's elect Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a socialist. And he's going to pass all these New Deal programs. Did the New Deal programs eliminate the Depression? No. How did they cause it? Taking money out. How did they end it? By printing money. Oh, son of a gun, everything is better. Thank you, FDR. How stupid can we be? It's like, watch the little birdie over here, and with the other hand, they're, slicing our throat. So the Federal Reserve Bank is supposed to be, working in our favor? No. Is the Federal Reserve Bank part of the government? No. People say, well, it's got federal in it. It's got to be part of the government. Is Federal Express part of the post office? No. Just because it's got the word federal? Anybody ever order federal pizza? It's like, oh my gosh, this must have the government stamp of approval. How come there's no pepperoni? Just because it's got the word federal in it doesn't mean anything. And you can prove it to yourself. Go to the phone book. Go to the blue pages where all the government offices are. Post office, police departments and stuff. Show me Federal Reserve Bank. It's not there. Flip back to the white pages, find Federal Express, and you may be lucky enough to find it just, a couple inches away from there. It's a private corporation. It has never been audited. Now, why was Abraham Lincoln assassinated?
Greenback.
He got stood in front of the bullet. Now, Abraham Lincoln was fighting the Civil War, and he wanted money. You think bankers are willing to loan him money? You bet. You want that money? Sure thing, Abe. Going to cost you 30%. Abe said, no. I've got enough problems on my hand with the war. I'm not going to make more by, borrowing your money at 30%. So Abraham Lincoln printed new money. He went back to Washington. He says, what am I ever going to do? And his treasurer says, print money. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5. Coin money and regulate the value thereof. That's one of the things the government can do. So Abraham Lincoln printed money with green ink on the back. Up until then, money was black and white. Why did he put it on green ink? So you'd be able to tell which ones were which. So he printed a couple $1 million, put it in circulation, won the Civil War, and then started taking all those monies out. Anything with a green back was taken out of circulation. So for a short period of time we had inflation, but at least we didn't pay interest on it. And he pissed off the bankers because he wouldn't play their game. Bang! Everyone wants to know, whatever happened to JFK certainly was not Oswald. No. Who can believe... you can't even get 3 bullets out of the gun that fast, much less aim. Anybody who's used a bolt-action rifle knows that. Now, on page 26, I've got a short commentary on just perhaps why JFK might have been killed. JFK decided to eliminate the power of the Federal Reserve Bank, to strip its power to loan money and start printing federal treasury notes. Start printing it by the government the way they're supposed to do. And that was with Executive Order 11-110. 11110. And I've got Executive Order 11110 listed right there. And it says, by virtue of the authority vested in me, by the paragraph such and such of May 12, 1933, okay, to issue silver certificates against any silver bullion, silver, or standard silver dollars in the Treasury, not then held for redemption. So, JFK was going to give us our money back. 5 months later, somebody put a bullet in his head.
Coincidence.
Just a pure coincidence, I'm sure. Okay? That law, that executive order has never been repealed. We can still do that. We can still have the Treasury print silver certificates. Why don't they? You know, nobody wants to stand in front of that bullet anymore.
Do they have the silver to back?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of silver. Silver is actually better for us right now than gold because there is so much of it. There's too much of it. I mean, we had people that tried to corner the market on it, and they couldn't do it. There's just too much. You know? So, then on page 27, I have a series of quotes that are all dealing with the Federal Reserve. It says, 100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt. All individual income tax revenues are gone before 1 nickel is spent on services taxpayers expect from the government. This was the Grace Commission that was authorized by Reagan. They did a study. They said, your tax money does not go for hospitals and roads and national defense. Not a single penny. It's a lie. How many people have ever heard of the Grace Commission? Well, they've kind of swept it under the rug. I'm still trying to get a copy of it. Daniel Webster said, of all contrivances for cheating the laboring classes of mankind, none has been more effective than that which deludes them with paper money. Thomas Jefferson said, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation and then deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children will wake up homeless on the continents their father conquered. You're going to end up with spit. I'll let you go through those other quotes. Here's the President Andrew Jackson. You are a den of vipers and thieves. I intend to rout you out. And by the grace of eternal God, I will rout you out. And he did the best job of getting rid of the thing. Page 28 has other quotes. In the middle, Representative Louis McFadden said, the Federal Reserve banks are the most corrupt institutions the world has ever seen. There is not a man within the sound of my voice who does not know that this nation is run by the international bankers. And he was speaking in Congress. Congress knows exactly what's going on. Congress is not working out for your best interests. Now, how did all this happen? In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was written, and the Federal Reserve started printing money. They were loaning money to the United States. We were obligated to pay our debts, our interest, in gold. We'll give you this paper. You have to pay us in gold. That happened for 20 years. In 1933, the United States went bankrupt. Now, I've met somebody who actually heard Franklin Delano Roosevelt say that live. This is not some history book. This is a person who heard it for himself. And on June 5th of 1933, FDR, our third guy, passed a joint resolution to suspend the gold standard. So Congress presumably passed a law that says you are not allowed to demand gold or silver. Up until then, you can say, I'll give you anything you want, but you got to pay me in gold. And FDR says, no, you can't do that. It's now illegal to demand gold. Says who? How can they make it illegal to demand gold? Do you have an unlimited right to contract? Yes. So how can FDR tell you what you can or cannot accept? But, whereas the existing emergency, which existing emergency are they talking about?
The bankruptcy.
The bankruptcy, the depression. Oh my gosh, the economy is terrible. Oh yeah, but you created that artificially. The existing emergency has disclosed the provisions of obligations which purport to give the obligee a right to require payment in gold or a particular kind of coin or currency, or in the amount of coin in U.S. dollar measured thereby, obstruct the power of Congress to regulate the value of money. So your rights are kind of a pain in the butt for us, so we're going to eliminate your rights. They can't do that. They didn't give them to us. They can't take them away. And this act is completely and totally unconstitutional. And down below, they say the term coin or currency means coin or currency of the United States, including Federal Reserve notes. So suddenly, worthless paper is now going to be traded the same as gold and silver. Isn't that wonderful? Page 30. In 1933, this is 1933. This is as it was happening. There were people awake, but nobody was listening. Congressman Beck, speaking from the congressional record. What does that mean?
On the floor.
It means on the floor. On the congressional record means that you can go to the archives and look it up. Don't take my word for it. Don't read the man's words yourself. Because I think of all the damnable heresies that have ever been suggested in connection with the Constitution, the doctrine of emergency is the worst. It means that when Congress declares an emergency, there is no Constitution. It means it's death. It's the very doctrine that the German Chancellor is invoking today. Which German Chancellor?
Hitler.
Hitler. So FDR did exactly the same thing that Hitler did. We bombed Hitler. We call him the worst, most evil man in history. But we're going to build a monument to FDR? Where's the logic in that? I have promised myself that before I die, I am going to go to Hyde Park, New York, and I am going to piss on his grave.
Come in on that, would you?
It says Chancellor Hitler is at least frank about it. We pay the Constitution lip service, but the result is the same. And so since March 9th of 1933, the United States has been, in fact, in a state of declared national emergency. My mother was born in 1934. She has lived her entire life under a state of national emergency. Well, if we're in a state of national emergency, how can we go out to these 4th of July picnics and throw the frisbee and have hot dogs? It's an emergency. Shouldn't we be running around going, the sky is falling, the sky is falling? How could it be a national emergency? An emergency means temporary. You know, it's on fire, you put the fire out, the emergency's over with. How can an emergency last for 70 years? Just by definition, it's no longer an emergency. Now, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of American citizens. Don't you feel special? And they have been renewing that emergency. I guess in 1970 sometime they said, wait a minute, you can't have an emergency that lasts that long. The President has to reallocate that emergency every 2 years. And they do. Start writing Freedom of Information Acts and asking about all that. We need a president that's willing to say, the national emergency is over. Now,
Mike, excuse me. You didn't mention about the confiscation of gold by executive order also.
right. And then that's true. I'm trying to kind of... what he's asking about is the confiscation of gold. Basically, Roosevelt tried to make claimed to make owning gold illegal. It's now illegal because you're hoarding it. You are an enemy of the state. You've got to turn in all your gold. And people did.
Yeah, right. That's the funny part.
It's like, why? You know, you got to jump off that cliff. No, I don't think I do. And what did they do? They put all of our gold in Fort Knox to keep it safe. Has anybody seen that gold? We've tried to get audits. Can you get anywhere close to Fort Knox? No, the gold's not there. All we want to do is we want to go in with a video camera. We want to see our gold. They don't let you in because it ain't there. They've lied to us again. How bad does it have to get before we do something? Page 31. I'm just going to go through these real briefly. We've got so much corruption in the United States, it's not even funny. World War I was deliberately started. I mean, everybody was all, happy. They were shaking hands, and somebody assassinated Archduke Ferdinand. Oops, there we go. Got everything in. U.S. was deliberately dragged in by sinking the Lusitania. World War II was deliberately started. And FDR got us into the World War II. How did he do that?
Blockade of Japanese.
Well, he was blockading Japan,
Yeah.
but he also created the Pearl Harbor travesty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make each of you admiral. You have a navy. One of the good things about a navy is that you got lots of boats, and boats can move around and zigzag. A moving target is hard to hit. Anybody disagree with that? Not only is your boat hard to hit because it's moving, it's hard to find. You can hide it in the ocean. Anybody fly across the ocean? I mean, if you have a boat out there, the boat's probably the only people who know where it is. Finding a needle in a haystack is easy compared to finding a boat in the ocean. So now, as the admiral, your first act is to decide whether this is a good idea or not. We're going to take all of our boats and we're going to put them in this little tiny harbor called Pearl Harbor, and we're going to line them up in a straight line. How many admirals in the room want to do that? Not one. Why did we have our boats there in the first place? Because before he became president, FDR was also Secretary of the Navy. When he got elected president, he gave his admiral the order. He says, put all of your boats in Pearl Harbor. The admiral says, I will not. I'm an admiral. I mean, what kind of admiral am I going to be if I put all my boats in Pearl Harbor? No. FDR fired him. Put somebody else in. Said, put all your boats in the harbor. And he said, well, gosh, look what happened to my predecessor. I don't want to lose all these shiny medals. FDR deliberately caused Pearl Harbor to get us involved in World War II. That is treason. If he were alive today, I would assassinate that SOB myself. Anybody want to know my real feelings on the issue?
It's all right, we got it on tape.
Now, the question now becomes, if things are so bad, is there any good news? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel? And the answer is yes. Don't give up. We are just about to turn this thing around. If you don't do anything, we're definitely going down the tubes. So if we are going to turn it around, we've got to get up off of our fannies and do something. Now, one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to regain our law. The third article of the Constitution is the smallest and it provides us with the least amount of protection. That's where we need to focus. So, join the Fully Informed Jury Association. one of the things that juries can do is they can overturn the law.